Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about audiobooks. This is going to be the first video of many in this series, and I hope you stick around and enjoy. So welcome back to my channel. My name is Kylie. I'm an author, tuber, voice actress, but I'm also a full-time audiobook narrator, and I have been recording audio for audiobooks and authors for the past 6 years. A little bit of an introduction on how this series came about. I did a few classes over the course of last year, and they were great. My husband and I were in a studio. We were working with people in the booths, doing some workouts, narrating, reading, doing some different dialogues, understanding the engineering aspect and the post-production quality of it all. And they were three-hour classes, and they just didn't seem long enough. So I wanted to bring this to authors and narrators alike as a resource to at least get a start. I will make a caveat. Every narrator has a different process. Every production company has a different process. Every author goes through a different process. This is how I usually do mine and what has worked for me for the past 6 years with the authors that I have worked with, and they have been very happy with it. So, why audiobooks? So we all know that back in 2010, there was the ebook boom, the creation of the indie author. No longer did you have to go through the gatekeepers of agents and book publishers, but you were able to produce, write, and publish your own book, and Amazon allowed that. Now, probably between, I would say, 2017-16 to now, there has been an audio boom. And how I know this is during the pandemic, last year in 2020 was the best year that my husband and I had for audio. Everybody wanted audio. People were listening to audio. Everybody was subscribing to Audible. And it was a great way for people to escape and to read or listen to books when they didn't necessarily have the time to sit down and read a full-on paperback novel. Audiobooks have grown in demand exponentially. It's easy to listen to, as I said. You can listen to it anywhere, at work, in the car, you know, doing dishes, chores, traveling on airplanes, anything. You can plug into an audiobook. You can be hands-free, and it's a great way to listen to a book that you've wanted to read, but unless it was Audible, you wouldn't stop to take the time to actually physically read it. Readers really want to hear their favorite characters brought to life. I mean, I get excited when I see books coming out in, you know, series form, like The Witcher, or Haunting of Hill House was great. I read the book, I loved it, loved the show. Anytime a book adaptation is done in a movie format, I get a little nervous, or in a series format, I get a little nervous. Most of the time they do a pretty good job. However, audio, you still get the veneer of the imagination, the description, the narrator setting it up instead of you reading it in your hands. And it's a fantastic way to kind of cross that line into the fantastical and the real without having to sit down and see it on screen. Also, there are some people who are auditory processors, which means their reading comprehension isn't as high, isn't as good, or they're dyslexic, and that is no big deal. My husband has a comprehensive reading issue, and he loves audiobooks. So totally understand people who learn better audibly than they do visually. I'm a visual learner, so I like to have a book in my hand most of the time. My husband, he has a little bit of comprehension issues, so he likes to listen to it more. And that makes audiobooks a great equalizer. For authors, it's another avenue of income that you can stack onto your paperback, your ebook, and your hardcover. It's another way to offer a different version to your readers. And for narrators, as voice actors or even actors who are interested in the art of voiceover, it is a good option for supplemental income, or even, like it became for me, a full-time gig. So why am I speaking about this so passionately? Because I've had 6 years in the game. I quit my full-time job to do this, and I've read over 250 audiobooks in my 5.5 years in the industry. I did it for a half a year part-time, and then I quit my job and went into it full-time. I am also agented with an agency down here in Dallas, Texas, the Campbell Agency. So I am technically a professional voice actress. I do everything from on camera, modeling, voiceover for commercials, industrials, gaming, and anime. So this is what I do. My husband as well has been pretty much doing this alongside of me almost as long. He's been in it for about 5 years. I pulled him on as my producer because he is better at the engineering and post-production things than I am, because he just understands the software better. But he is also now one of my co-narrators, and he has read close to 100 audiobooks, produced and post-produced over like 200 for me, about that for me and other people. And then he's also been with the Campbell Agency as well, but he does everything. He's a spokesperson. He's been on TV series. He's done movies, you know, he's done everything more than I have. So this is what we do. We are creatives, and our voices are what pays the bills. Eric will be popping into these courses or sessions off and on to kind of help go over the engineering and the software portion of the audio production process, because that is his strong suit, where I will be talking more on the narration side. And now my son is awake, so BRB. Okay, I'm back. A note on the acting front. What I will say is that it's hard work. It takes time and perseverance. You have to be an actor first in order to do anything kind of voiceover acting wise. You need that theater workshop actor base. It does not happen overnight, and you will be rejected more times than you can count. To this day, I still audition for way more audio and commercials and things that I don't get over what I do book. So it's just a numbers game. The anatomy of an audiobook. So within audiobooks, obviously, like in most publishing, there are genres. A few of those are Westerns, romance, fantasy, YA or young adult, middle grade children's fiction, sci-fi, women's fiction, how-to, self-help, and motivation. These are just a handful, but they are some of the ones that I see and audition for on a more regular basis, especially romance, especially fantasy, sci-fi, and YA. Now, there are some gender vocal preferences in each genre. It's not a rule, it's not a law, and it's not anything that is set in stone. It's something that fluctuates. One genre, women's voices might be more popular to read at the time, and sometimes men's voices might be more popular for that genre at the time, or both voices on the project. It just depends on the market, and it just depends on what is the trend at the time. What you'll want to do is keep an eye on this. Just as an author, you'll want to know who is selling well in your market. There are a multitude of types of narration that we are going to discuss in this series of videos. The first being solo, which is just one narrator. It's say me doing a complete story by myself. The second is dual narration. For example, the male voice will do all of the male point of view character chapters, as well as do the female dialogue within those chapters, and the female narrator will do all the female chapters from the female point of view, as well as lower her voice for the male dialogue. So you get this really neat male, female, back and forth switch between the chapters, sometimes even at chapter splits. But it's one voice throughout the whole entirety of the section or the chapter. And duet is the third type, where you have a male voice doing the male point of view characters chapters, but the female narrator will come in or already be in booth to do those fill-ins areas that the female has for dialogue, and vice versa. The female will read her female chapters and the male will come into her chapters and do the male dialogue. Now there's something new called multicasting, which is getting pretty big. It's where you have your main narrator for female and your main narrator for male, and you have a cast of narrators to voice individual side characters or the supporting cast. This has gotten a lot of attention recently because it is more like an audio play, kind of like an audio drama, more than it is an audio book, and it's been pretty successful so far. Because of COVID-19 and the way that things are just set up right now, all of these methods can be done in the same booth or not in the same booth via a plugin via Source Connect, which is a software used to kind of like beam into other studios. Or if you are narrating individually, say I'm narrating a part and my narration partner is across the pond in England, that's totally fine. We just bounce the files to each other back and forth, or we just do our parts and the engineer, whoever that is, does a wonderful job of putting them together and making them succinct. So you can be in the same room, but because of the state of the world right now, which is pretty unpredictable, you can pretty much do this without being in the same city, state, or even country to work with other narrators. And personally for me, it's really broadened the scope of the people who I can work with, and I'm so grateful for that. One of the things you will run into in books, and as an author, you will have your characters be from wherever they are because they're your organic characters. And as narrators, you're going to have to bring them to life. You're going to have to voice them. A note on accents. Do not do an accent unless you can be native passing or passable. The most common accents I run into are British RP, Scottish, Irish, Northern Irish, Madrid, Spain, Russian, Midwestern, Western like Texan, Southern like Georgia or Tennessee, French, Hispanic, and sometimes Asian. So depending on your master of the craft of dialects, do really be judgmental on yourself if you can do it or not. You have to be really cut and dry. There are certain accents that I can do that give me a really hard time. Russian is one of them. I can do it, but I really have to listen to a lot of Russian things before I go into the booth. There are certain ones like Asian that I just won't touch because I cannot do them and they are so foreign to me. It just doesn't feel right to do them. So I don't even attempt it. And there is a whole host of accents throughout the world. Really think about it before you do it, because there will be native speakers of that accent or dialect listening to the book who will be able to tell. That's not to say that you can't do accents. Some of the best places to do dialect training is to connect with an acting or a dialect coach, take courses online by professionals, or you can go to idea.com where they have a whole host of information where you can literally go in and listen to native speakers speaking in monologues, telling a little about themselves, about where they live, especially when it comes to dialects, because Liverpool is different than, say, Manchester is different from London. And even in London, you have different accents everywhere from Cockney to Estuary. And it's better to go straight to the source to find native speakers. We will go over all of these topics that I've touched on in more depth in the following videos in regards to authors and narrators. So I just want to kind of sum this up to the author. Things you'll need to think about for an audiobook are you will need to pick a platform to work off of if you haven't already sold your rights to a company such as Tantor, Audible, or Podium. And you also have to think of a budget if you are self-producing this yourself. Different narrators have different price points, and depending on how many narrators you want in your project, if they are also going to be doing the post-production, or if you're pulling in an engineer from elsewhere, that has to all be broken down and set before you can even think about auditioning. One thing as an author that I know is very important is to budget your marketing, and also budget what you need for like cover, editor, formatter, copy edits, line edits, all that stuff. Same thing goes for audiobooks. You will want to audition talent, and I would almost ask other authors who they like to work with, who they found great to work with, because they might be able to segue you into a narrator who is booked or harder to get into. Just by who you're, associated with. The narrator is more apt to be like, oh, okay, so I work with so-and-so and I trust them. So-and-so wants me to meet this person. I am more apt to talk to this person now because I trust so-and-so. It's like any acting, any entertainment biz thing. Sometimes word of mouth is better than trial by fire or cold auditioning people. Then you're gonna send, after the audition process, you're gonna send the manuscript to the talent. The talent is gonna give you a 15-minute sample or some kind of sample back, depending on if you're doing this through a platform or not that has requirements for an audio sample, and you're gonna sign off on that sample. Before you even sign off on that sample, there's probably gonna be a contract signed. I highly recommend everything, even if it's done outside of a platform, have a contract signed. Get everything in writing and hold people's feet to the fire, because you would be surprised. Then you're going to keep tabs on your talent for contract purposes. And it's not like keeping tabs like babysitting them, but it's nice to have an open dialogue with your talent to know how they're doing. Do they need a pronunciation guide if it's a crazy fantasy novel? Do they need character descriptions if you have a specific way that you want somebody to sound? Those things are very, very helpful, especially if you have a large cast of characters and one person is narrating and they have to do a plethora of accents or different voices. It's good to get a list like that down to the narrator. We will thank you forever, especially pronunciation guides. They are the best. So once your narrator is finished, you are going to listen to the finished product, or they're close to finished product, or you will have like a alpha listener or an engineer or a proofer or someone else on it for you as the author. I always highly suggest the author, if they're not doing the proofing on the post-production work of the narrator, they at least listen to a chapter or two of a different variety. That way that they can tell for sure, yes, this is exactly how I want it to sound, or oh my gosh, you approve that? You want to have a say in it. You want to make sure that it's up to snuff. It's your book, baby. You want to make sure that it sounds exactly what you imagined in your mind, and it needs to be good, so you want it to be the best that it can be. Then you're going to market your audio, which is a whole other entity unto itself, and it's kind of like marketing your own book. There are giveaways you can do, there are algorithms, there are ads you can run, there are groups you can get into to get you giveaways that are very amazing and supportive of narrators and authors alike in audio. So that will be in its own video. And like I said, you might be approached by different companies to purchase your rights, such as Audible or Tantor or Podium, to name a few. And if that is the case, then you may or may not have a say in the narrators. I know some do allow you to have a preference. If those preferences are available, usually something can be done. But a lot of people that I know have really good luck with the companies that produce their audio for them. Very close contact every step of the way, and you're just a part of the process. There's just another person kind of co-piloting with you. So to the narrator, you will need to get equipment and software together, and I would highly recommend you listen to books that are bestsellers by narrators who are top selling and authors who are top selling, so that you get an idea of what an audiobook is and what it should sound like, both the performance and the quality of audio. From there, you're going to set up your platform, your profile on various platforms. Then you're going to audition and keep auditioning like any good actor. And once you get an offer, If it's for you, great. So you're going to sign the contract and then you're going to request the manuscript from the author. You're going to do your 15-minute sample like you would a finished product. You're going to clean it up. You're going to do all your post-production to it, send it back to the author. They will say yay or nay, fix this, change that, or they may say, I love it. Can we fix this going forward? And you will agree on that, and then you will move forward with the rest of the audiobook. So you are definitely going to want to keep track of your clients and finished projects within the contractual agreement. It's just good practices. And sometimes if you have a good working relationship with an author, you can be like, hey, I got sick. Sometimes if you've worked with this author multiple times, it's gonna be fine. Unless they're on deadline, that's totally different. Everybody's situation is different, but I always say try to be as open, honest, and transparent as you can with your schedule and with the contract with the author. And if something crazy comes up, like your appendix bursts or your water breaks 2 weeks early, guilty, you will be able to let your author know, and they won't be wondering where the heck you are and where the heck their product is. If you're also co-narrating with someone, this is the time where you want to get together with your co-narrator. And if you're doing a dual book, you're going to want to agree on tonation, how the character is going to be played. I always send samples back and forth to my co-narrators if I'm narrating in that way, or if we're doing duet, we just do what we do. We do our voices, and the engineer does a beauty mash of our voices and equalizes our tracks, and it sounds like we were in the same studio. If you are doing post-production for your own, like for your audiobook, you're gonna want to make sure you schedule enough time, not just do the narration, but to also do the post-production work. You're going to upload it or send it to your author. They are going to proof it and send edits back. There's only been a few times, there's been a handful of times where I've had 0 edits back on a book, but usually there's a missed word here, a missed word there. It happens. So you might get a couple handful, like a half a page worth of edits back. Say you missed a dialogue tag, or there wasn't a dialogue tag there and it was supposed to be a man speaking when you made it a woman speaking. Simple things like that happen. Then you're going to upload the finalized edited versions. The author or the proofer is going to okay it, and then you're going to get paid. And then you are going to market your audiobook, because your product is your voice. Marketing your audiobooks is a great way to get more work, and it's definitely something I would highly recommend, especially if you are doing what's called a royalty share, which means the author has agreed to give you partial ownership over the audiobook within the contract. So not only is the author getting paid from the royalties, but you are splitting it with the author. So I would highly recommend it. I know this seems like a lot of information, and it is literally just the intro overview of audiobooks, and we will go into depth on a multi-level approach to these different topics. I'm going to speak to some people who are more informed about what happens when you sell your rights to an audio company and how that process works, because as a narrator, I'm not a company. I do work with companies who do purchase rights for audiobooks, so I'm going to reach out to some of them on my team that I have, that I know that I'm in contact with on a pretty regular basis, and just ask how that whole thing works out. And like I said, my husband will be coming in here to talk about engineering, equipment, software, the like. So there will be more to this series. It will come about as quickly as I can. A lot of research does go into these videos. I have multiple class notes that I've taken, presentations that we've done at different book conferences and conventions on audiobooks and how to get started, and I'm piecing them all together to put on here. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, give me a like, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. One love, guys.